Hello, and welcome to the Parent Information Center's Planning for Life After High School online series. This series provides information about where and how planning for life after high school, also called post-secondary transition, is addressing the Individualized Education Program, IEP, and how youth with disabilities and their families are involved in the process. This series was developed in companion to PIC's Life After High School Planning Toolkit. If you've not checked out the toolkit, we encourage you to do so. Visit our website at picnh.org. Select Resources and Planning for Life After High School. Here you will find the Transition Toolkit, which you can view, share, download, or print. The Parent Information Center is a statewide family organization that provides information and training to help families of children with disabilities and special health care needs and professionals that support them to work together more effectively. Parent Information Center is New Hampshire's designated parent and training information center funded by the Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. The contents of this module were developed by the Parent Information Center in full or in part under the grant for U.S. Department of Education. This session is the first of 3 sessions. Here we will discuss what post-secondary transition is and begins to discuss why and how youth with disabilities and their family are involved in the process. So what is post-secondary education? The Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDA, of 2014 defines transition as a coordinated set of activities designed with a result-oriented process that is focused on improving the academic and functional performance of the child with disability to facilitate the child's movement from school to post-secondary activities, including post-secondary education, vocational education, integrated employment, including supported employment, continuing adult education, adult services, independent living, or community participation based on students' needs and taking into account his or her preferences and interests. This includes instruction, related services, community experiences, the development of employment, and other post-school adult living objectives, and when appropriate, acquisition of daily living skills and a functional vocational evaluation. Although IDA's definition is lengthy, it can be a bit difficult to understand, but it's important to know that it provides the framework for the IEP teams to use for planning success after high school. Now that we've heard the technical definition, let's talk about what transition means in more practical terms. Generally speaking, transition is the movement from one setting or stage in life to another. There's a variety of transitions in a child's life. There's transitions from home to preschool, preschool to kindergarten, kindergarten to elementary school, etc. When we talk about post-secondary transition, we're talking about life after high school. Planning for life after high school is not a one-time event. It's a formalized process that starts when a youth with disabilities is 14 years old and continues throughout the high school years. Transition planning is individualized and requires recognizing your youth's goals for adult life, their strengths, interests, preferences, and needs. And lastly, transition planning is a partnership between you, your youth, the IEP team, and adult services or community program providers. Preparing for life after high school is important. It's something parents do with all youth, but it's especially important for youth with disabilities because the research shows that youth with disabilities are less likely to have post-secondary goals. They are also less likely to be employed and more likely to be underemployed than their peers without disabilities. Also, effective planning for life after high school can help keep youth engaged and in school. The post-secondary transition planning process provides time and structure necessary for the IEP team to be thoughtful, thorough, and proactive in planning. It's important to recognize that post-secondary transition planning changes the way IEP teams build IEPs. Typically, IEP teams are focused on what is needed for this year. IEP teams must now start from what is often considered to be beyond the endpoint, what a youth wants to do after graduation from high school. While we will talk more in detail about specific steps in the IEP components later on, I want to talk more about how this shift in thinking affects the roles of parents and youth play in the IEP process. Youth are required to be part of the post-secondary transition process. Matter of fact, whenever transition is being discussed, IDA and the New Hampshire Standards for the Education of Child with Disabilities requires that youth be invited to their IEP meeting. There is, however, no requirement that they attend the meeting. If they choose not to attend, the IEP team must include their preferences and interests into the transition planning components. Your youth's voice must be factored into the transition process, and the IEP team should determine the most appropriate way for this to happen. Getting your youth's input, especially regarding their goals for life after high school, is key to the success of the transition plan. We'll talk more about strategies for getting this input in later modules. Planning for life after high school includes a shift in roles. Transition planning puts the youth in the driver's seat. As parents, we may struggle with the changing of roles and responsibilities and other emotions that may come up as our child grows up. It can be overwhelming to think about what your child's going to do after high school, and you may not always agree with your child's plans for the future. Some days we might not agree with the little things. Planning for life after high school is a big thing, and we can bring on a range of emotions. The discussion we may need to have as part of this process can be discomfort for parents, because while we want the best for our youth, they may not always welcome our insight or advice. The youth have their own ideas and want the chance to try things out for themselves. This may mean that we will have to let them make mistakes. Likewise, some youth may not feel comfortable with the role changing because this role carries more or different responsibilities. They may want support but are not sure how to ask for the type of support they need. It's important to remember that the transition to life after high school happens for all youth. There is often more at stake for those with disabilities. Post-secondary planning, while emotional, provides us a lot of opportunities. Let's recognize that during high school, it's not uncommon for all parents to feel like they're on an emotional roller coaster. It can be scary to think about what life after high school will look like, and that it can be heightened for parents of children with disabilities. As your youth grows closer to the end of high school, it's completely normal to begin feeling a sense of shock or fear. Every youth with disabilities is unique and individual. Every youth has different wants and needs for their life. If we use the framework of transition planning, we can help the youth be more successful in this process and build self-determination skills to find the path in life they would like for themselves. This will reduce stress and anxiety and increase positive outcomes for youth with disabilities. It's important for parents to recognize their own feelings during the transition process and think about how these feelings impact them throughout the process. When faced with a milestone of graduation, many parents go through a variety of emotions. Some parents, especially parents of children with disabilities, go through similar to the cycle of grief described by Liz Klomler-Ross. While not every parent experiences all these feelings, and not always in this order, knowing whatever you're feeling is okay. At first, you might feel total numb and overwhelmed by having to face the major milestones of graduation and the decision for you and your youth to make. You might feel depressed, or some parents may feel a sense of sadness over your child being different and their path to adulthood being more difficult. You may be in denial that the planning has to start now and may not want to think about life after high school. You may start to feel guilty about doing too much or too little. You might start to second guess your parenting skills or the decisions that you have made. Perhaps you feel shame for being afraid for your youth and their ability to succeed, or for the need for adult services for your youth. You may feel isolated, especially if you don't know other families of youth with disabilities who have gone through the transition process. Many parents of youth with disabilities report feeling alone during this time. You may be in panic about what your youth's life will be like after high school and how they will be successful in college or on their own. You could feel anger, and it might be directed at everyone. It might be directed at yourself. You may be angry that transition planning is hard and that you have to do it at all. During the bargaining phase, you may feel ready to deal with some of the aspects of this process. You might start thinking about, okay, we can do this part right now, but not this. You should start feeling hopeful and begin to believe that things are going to be okay and that you and your youth can do this and even be successful. And finally, acceptance. When we recognize that our child with disability is a child first and that we're able to work through the planning. These feelings can emerge at any time, but sometimes it's easier to predict starting first grade, birthdays, age 16, getting driver's license, and certainly when your youth is planning for life after high school. One area you'll need to come to terms with rather quickly is regarding your youth participation in the transition planning process. A youth participation doesn't just happen. We've got to support them. It's important that your youth understands their disability, learning styles, strengths, and needs. You and the IEP team can help them develop healthy self-advocacy skills by teaching them to explain how their disability affects them in the classroom and how to ask for what they need. Youth often feel frustrated by being invited to IEP meetings and not knowing what's going on. Help them to become familiar with the lingo of special education. Teach your youth about the purpose of special education in the transition process. Help them to learn about their IEP, what's in it, and its purpose. And lastly, it's important that families and IEP teams provide opportunities for involvement in the transition planning process beyond just attending IEP meetings. Not all youth will want to go to meetings, and just because they don't want to attend does not mean that they don't have anything important to say. Determine other ways that they can communicate their ideas and goals. This can include having a pre-meeting with a case manager or IEP team member, completing worksheets or surveys, or participating in an informal interview. In this video, parents share how they encourage their youth to participate in IEP meetings.
For Tony, as far as transition services that we put or included in the IEP, there was a lot of things, I guess, if you look over the last 2 or 3 years. Once we identified a program for early childhood development, we had to arrange for transportation from her high school to the program where it takes place. Once she gets to the early childhood development, she has a paraprofessional which really serves as a job coach. She has an access to nurse both at the high school and at the early childhood program.
And even things when she wants to go to a dance or an after school activity, she has a nurse there available to her so that they can check her blood sugar, and if she wants to eat something, her pump can be modified.
Correct.
During extended school year services, we hired Northeast Passages, and my son was taught how to use public transportation, how to read a bus schedule, and how to manage his money, because he needed money not only to get there, but also enough money to get home. He learned how to wait at a bus stop, how to do it safely. And to this day, we are now in a different community. He's been out of school for a few years. He is able to use public transportation safely and successfully.
She actually accessed and benefited from math tutoring. It was a very strong support to help her get through her classes. SAT review class, which was through the special education team, because it needed to help her with her math learning disability to best prepare for that test. She also received writing support for her college essay. We attended the college fair at the high school and talked with some of the counselors that were available to us. And we also researched schools that had strong learning disability support. And then we also had to apply for SAT accommodations through the special education team at school, so that she could have extended time on the SATs. All of these transition services helped Erin to support her to reach her measurable post-secondary goal, which she did, and she is now attending a 4-year college and is doing terrific.
So in respect to the transition services and the services that we have in the IEP, we again had to revamp that and add some things. The school was able to give us an outside vendor to work on the outside work opportunities, to learn how to fill out a job application, go on an interview, go out in the community, how, he learned how to ride a bus in Manchester if he needed to get to the library or someplace else. And that was all incorporated right in his IEP.